Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Courage to Change podcast. I am here with Eddie Atwood,
Hello.
and he has been gracious enough to join us and tell us his story of recovery and what it was like and what happened and what it's like now. So, welcome, Eddie.
Thank you. Um, I don't know. I was born here in Everett, and I was a pretty good kid until about 13, and then I learned how to fight, and that was probably part of my problem there. Uh, I went from being a good kid playing sports to fighting and smoking pot and drinking. Um, Had my first kid at 16. By 25, I had four kids. But I was a bad dad. I was more interested in drugs than I was in my children, unfortunately. I started selling at an early age. Started out with marijuana, which was, nothing, nobody got hurt over marijuana, so they say. Um, in particularly, I got shot over a $20 bag of marijuana. I took a 40 cal through my belly, out of my back, and survived that in 2001. Of all the things to be shot for, I got shot with marijuana. So a drug is a drug is a drug, It doesn't matter what it is. People who do drugs do weird things. Um, I got into meth probably around 13. Started shooting dope around 16. That lasted until I was about 19. Some incidents came up where some people I would do a lot of stealing. I would not only dealing, but I would do some stealing. I'd tell people I go get them a certain amount and then take off with the money and have a good weekend. And that was a common thing for me. It lasted a couple of years until it caught up with me, and then the bill grew. And as the bill got bigger and bigger, people got more violent, and they started sending what they would call a tax man after me, and as I said, I learned to fight. So I sent their tax back right home, their tax man right back home almost every time. Until one time I was in Granite Falls and I did a deal with a guy. Um, and he pulled out a gun and told me that I had to get out of his car. And another car kept pulling up with five guys in it. And, well, I told him I wasn't going to get out of the car because one of the guys had a bat. So the guy put the bat back in, needless to say. And he was one of the taxmen that actually tried to beat me up before, and I had beat him up and sent him back to his dealer. Um, I got out of the car. I walked around the car. I lunged forward at the guy. He leaned back, so I grabbed the bat, and then I just started beating the car and screaming loud and making a bunch of noise. And some lady came out. It was a dead end road in Grand Falls, right across the street from Loxley. Anyways, they wound up taking off. The lady said, "I'm gonna call the cops," and I "Call the cops if you want." And she did, and I went to the people and I called my mom, and my mom they wanted to put me in treatment then because I was an IV user and I was pretty messed up. Um, uh, we did an assessment at Providence, and it was almost $10,000 to put me through treatment at that point in time. It was a lot of money. And there was no way my parents, they could afford it, but no way I could let them afford it. It was too much. And so my mom asked me what she could do, and I told her to get me a motel in her name away from everybody. And ironically, uh, I got a motel up on 100th here, Motel 6, which happens to be a local drug area. And, for the first 3 days, I did drugs. I gotta say, I was shooting dope and being just didn't care about what my mom and dad had just put out for me. Um, and that was common to me. So I don't know. One night, on about the third night, I did a big old shot and looked in the mirror and just broke down and decided I was going to quit at that point in time. And so I went back to pot, and pot was all I did for many years. And I have a friend who just recently died. He jumped in front of a train here on the road. He was all high. They found heroin on him. But he would come over to my house and uh, smoke meth. So I didn't do it for a long time, but you hang out at the barbershop to get a haircut. So I smoked it and off to the races I was. I quit shooting. I didn't shoot dope at that point in time. And I was probably, there's a lot of times I skipped in between there because of raising kids and things like that. I did get involved in my kids' lives and start doing things with them, but, I was never a full time dad, always a drug or a deal or chasing the deal as a young kid. I got addicted to that lifestyle, to that, to what, you know, the money, that quick money. And it's addicting all of its own. It's kind of like the motion of when I was quitting shooting meth, I would shoot water to just do the action of actually using a needle, but not have to high. It was kind of my way of using Suboxone. Um, well, I did meth for years and years and years. It became like a lifestyle. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't even a drug. It was just part of my daily routine. Wake up, smoke a bowl of meth, start my day. Like a person had a cup of coffee. It was nothing. You know, I mean, really nothing. like I dealt with a lot of weight, so I never really went without. You know, I know a lot of people here since I was born here, and Everett is a very drug-filled area. You have a lot of homeless people. Um, you have a lot of people on disabilities, and
Why do you think that is?
um, well, I have my own theory on that. Honestly, a long time ago, if you look at a, you might find this interesting. There's a 10-year range each way from my age. Okay, so I'm 50 right now. So from 60 down to 40, that 20-year range, everybody has mental disabilities, and I personally believe that's because when I was a little kid, we'd play at the Boys and Girls Club. Well, the Boys and Girls Club had this smokestack right outside of it, and it was Weyerhaeuser. And Weyerhaeuser would pump their chemicals, and it would come right. I mean, some days on Saturdays to play a football game, the field had a haze of fog. We had to wait for the fog to clear, the smoke to clear before we could even play. And they had all of us kids out there playing in those chemicals. And I really believe that led to an epidemic of people who
Are predisposed to a
to
chemical dependency?
yeah, yeah. So
That is the first time I have heard that theory.
well, I've been here my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So I guess for
and
the
when
record, we're
Weyerhaeuser,
not blaming Weyerhaeuser for our drugs
well, Weyerhaeuser shut
problem.
down.
Right. But, just in case.
Well, Weyerhaeuser shut down instantly when they left. They just pick up and left. They were
Right.
gone,
But we
gone the
still
next
have
day.
tweakers running around Everett.
Oh,
So,
for sure, for sure. And a lot of them come from other places. They're not
mhm.
they're not indigenous of Everett. But with the ones that were left here, that did grow up here, it created a real comfortable environment for the ones coming from out of town. I've seen people on the streets because I lived on the streets. Like I said, I left at 13. That's a really early age to leave. I spent time with my kids, but I was in a relationship for a long time that, I'd come by and help pay some bills, and then we get in an argument, and I'd be back out. I always had a car, I had a van. At one point in time, I had two Cadillacs, and I'd let the homeless people sleep in one of my Cadillacs, and I drove the other one to sell drugs. I don't know. It's been a long life here in Everett, I gotta say. There's been issues, like I mentioned, my friend who got, who I say got killed, but they call it an accidental death. Have you ever heard of gang stalking?
I have heard of gang stalking, but I'm
It's
not real familiar.
well, it's a non-violent way of assaulting a person. and it's basically the end game of gang stalking is to get a person to kill themselves on their own accord, and that's the end game. And over in Florida, I think it was Florida, they had all kinds of shopping carts that lined up, and they couldn't figure out where the homeless people went. Well, those homeless people later on they found out were dead, and that's because of the gang stalking. Um, so my friend got gang stalked pretty much, and what they do is anybody can do it. Um, is they just it's like the news, Como 4, or maybe it was I can't say which one it was. A local news channel during COVID told people to honk their horn at the homeless. Well, when you get everybody in the city driving by you and you're a little tweaked out and if people are all honking their horn at you, you get a little nervous. You're always wandering around, wondering where the next attack's going to come from. And it's just it's a non-violent way to assault your psyche.
Wait a minute. I don't remember the news telling
You don't
people to
remember that?
honk. No.
I do. During COVID, they said honk. We were trying to locate how many homeless we had. Or something, and they said honk your horn when you see the homeless, so we know what area they're in.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and
God, I don't remember that at all. That's bizarre.
that was a form of
Pit count.
gang stalking.
Oh, yeah.
That's just a tactic of gang stalking. You see how the
Hmm.
how the noise can get into your head.
Well, and meth is stereotypically a paranoid type of drug.
That it is.
So I would imagine when you feel somebody's stalking you or after you, and you've got some proof to back that up, it's extra.
Well, the thing about that is proof to back it up. I've had people come up to me. I'm a local person, a pretty comfortable person for most all the other homeless people. As you know, I do that feed, and I know almost everybody in the feed because I used to one time either sell, buy, or have protected one of them. Very few.
And just so people who don't know, that he's referred to as a community dinner that we held at the church,
Yeah,
for the unhoused to come by and get a meal once a week.
which we lost funding to, so go ahead and feel free to throw some funding
Yes,
our
we
way.
the funding,
Um, but
and the location. We're looking for another location to host that.
with preferably with the kitchen. Not to throw a plug out there for
Oh
that,
no,
but
plug away. But
it
yeah,
is something that
so
I do and I enjoy
interesting
doing.
that you're on the other side of the counter and you're serving the community that you used to know.
Well, now that I've
Or
gone through, see, I got into opiates after so long of doing meth, and I wouldn't do opiates. I knew selling drugs at a young age. I knew the outcome of it. I already knew with the needle how hard it was to quit a needle, but to me, heroin was like the evil of evils because it was an opiate. Once you started doing that, you needed to do something else before you could come off that, like a Suboxone or something. So you're going to be addicted, and I'm on Suboxone now. Um, you're going to be addicted to one thing or another. It's just now I'm addicted without the high, which is a better life. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes I feel kind of trapped still, where I got to wake up and get well before I can start my day. And that was the whole point of coming off the drugs is to not have my day dictated for me.
well, and I think it was interesting what you're saying, that there's two components of the addiction. One side is the physical, um, your body is addicted to the chemical. The other side is the ritual
Which is a
and the
painful
lifestyle.
that is a painful thing with the body needing that drug is a withdrawals are painful. It's
Mhm.
not just like it's like a punch in the face versus a cat scratch. It's
Mhm.
that big of a
Well, and
difference.
anybody that hasn't actually gone through a
You'll
withdrawal
never know.
will never know to the depths. I've heard it described.
A simple way
Um,
to try to understand is just go without sugar.
yeah, but that's
Because
even mild compared to
it
something like
is
getting off of an
for
opiate.
oh for sure
Like where
for
you want
sure.
to rip your arms and legs off.
Like they feel like they're ripping off on their own.
Ugh,
I mean, literally,
yeah.
your body contracts. I was laying
Mhm.
in detox at one point in time, and my arm went like this, and I was like, "Oh, I smoked myself retarded." I felt so bad. I just laid there crying because like my body was doing involuntary
Mhm.
movements, and I knew better, because for like I said, from a young age, I sold these poisons,
Yeah.
so I knew the outcomes. I mean, even at like 16, I sold crack at the bus stop down here. I'd have $100 worth of crack in my lip at all times. Just to watch what crack, as the drugs came through Everett, it was crack was first, and then meth came, and then you had, your meth head fight with your crackhead over who stole his shit. It was kind of funny to watch actually, as a young guy, but and then meth came, and it was really good for a long time. Um, it took over though. It took out the crack. Crack was gone. And then the that was crank back then. It wasn't crystal meth.
Mhm.
So now they got this new stuff, which is crystal meth, which was a decent drug. It it kept me high. Whatever, I enjoyed it. It ultimately ruined my life, but the fact is like they changed it. They stopped making crystal meth, and they started using fentanyl and other drugs to make it more addicting. And those drugs just, deteriorated my friends just quickly once they got on like I said, the fentanyl inside the bath. I just watched everybody just go downhill and straight to the blues. And the blues were a fentanyl drug too, which was per 30.
Or the equivalent to.
Yeah. And
What was your transition to opiates?
well, I had a girlfriend, and not that, and she was on opiates, and I started smoking her to be a smartass, and it was like I was playing with her like I'll kill myself with these, just like you're doing, and you can just sit here and watch me do it. And through the course of that weekend, I realized that I kind of liked the high of them, and I kept doing them, and the week was up, and I went back to Everett from where she was at, and got sick. I was all of a sudden addicted to him. I was all of a sudden it was I couldn't do nothing to get to feel better. And I didn't understand it actually. Even knowing about the opiates, I didn't realize that I had put myself in that position yet. That quick.
Because meth's not like that, right?
No, no, meth
So,
you can smoke and come down, and you're
but you don't go through
groggy.
the massive withdrawals
Yeah,
like
no,
after 3 days
no.
or so. There must be some sort of
If
mental
if
part,
there's
but
fentanyl in
no,
it, you do.
right. But
But
without the
the
opiate
without
factor,
the opiate factor, meth, you just kind of, you feel sick, you feel icky, you don't have a lot of motivation.
you sleep,
It's kind of like having a flu or whatever. You
right?
still function with a flu.
Yeah.
I mean, I was always able to function with meth, but with the opiates, I just could not function. I
Yeah.
couldn't until, I mean, so at that point in time, I realized I had an addiction, and I wasn't gonna get sick again.
Mhm.
So me, I sold, and that way I kept my habit up, and I didn't really even understand oh, I'm sick, I'm sick. I'd wake up, I'd have 13 phone calls, and I'd have four people at my RV screaming that they're sick. And before I could even start my day, out of sympathy, empathy, or whatever, I had to get all these people well before I could go and do what I wanted to do.
And this
And
you were dealing
I was dealing with blues at that
blues.
point in time. And blues, like I said, the per 30s, but they were fentanyl.
How much were those going for? Just
Well,
out of
they
curiosity.
started when I started selling. They were $10, and I was picking up $4. So
$10 a pill.
I made $6 a pill on
What are they
those.
now?
80 cents. I
Wow.
mean, I can get them now for 80 cents. Not that I do, but I can pick them up for 80 cents. Sometimes,
Wow.
sometimes less. If you buy, it all depends on quantity. There again, if you buy in bulk, you get, a better deal. I've heard of them going for as low as 25 cents a piece.
I mean, I'm not in the market or anything. I was just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah, Well, tell them when you know, get it. Yeah. So I made a good, like I said, I was making $6 a pill, by 100 at a time.
Well, and
You know,
I mean, your clients are literally sick without it. It's not like somebody that sells a car,
They started out at
the person
20
that doesn't
20.
get the car
They,
feels like they're going to die.
they started out at $20 a pill here. They were $20 a pill, and you could pick them up for 10. And make 10 bucks a
And then
pill.
it changed all the way down to 8. And so then
It,
Fetty powder.
it got flooded. The market got flooded down here. People bought buckets. I mean, I've seen buckets of these pills.
Wow.
Little buckets of them. And
Which, so, a good addict has got a pretty high tolerance. Whereas if I were to
I would,
ingest a blue, it could kill me. Is that
if you
correct?
were to eat one blue, it could kill you.
Yeah.
If just a regular person out of it. And the mistake of that is a per 30. You could eat a per 30 and
Mm-hmm.
not die.
Mm-hmm.
You might feel pretty sick or whatever, but you're not going to die. But you eat that much fentanyl,
Mm-hmm.
you're gone. You have to have a tolerance. And I would smoke, at that point, I smoked probably 60 to 70 pills a day. You know, I got And then soon the pills weren't working, so I found the fentanyl powder, which is real appetizing. It comes in all different colors, and you can get purple, you can get red, you can get plain white, you can get different colors to make it. I think they send it here that way to go for the youngsters. There was a rainbow Fetty. It actually had all the colors of a rainbow. Um, The Blues actually wound up coming here and they were dyed like Skittles.
Yikes.
So they were the colors
That's pretty dangerous
colors of Skittles,
for
and
we're having so many child overdoses.
yeah. And then they started doing uh, like top dollar pills. I don't know what they're called. Like you got your fancy purse, your Michael Kors purse. They had like the Michael Kors pills,
Oh,
the high end pills
how
that you could
bizarre.
buy, yeah. And all because of a stamp on them.
So you said you're 50 years old. You left home and started dabbling in shenanigans when you were 13, and you've got how long sober now?
I got 10 months now. It's taken me 2 years to get 10 months.
Nice, congrats.
Thank you. I smoked meth one time in that 10 months, but to be honest with my sobriety, I didn't call it a hiccup or a mistake. I gotta just take responsibility and say I threw all that time away. Or I would have almost 20 months now.
Hmm.
So, but I'm pretty proud of the 10 months that I got, even though it's taken me,
Hmm.
almost 2 years to get here. But
Yeah. How's your relationship with your kids now?
well, my kids are proud of me, but we still don't. My kids are older. We don't. They have their own families, and how often do you call your mother?
Me?
Yeah,
Daily.
do you? I call my mother daily now too, actually. Um, but yeah, we don't. Yeah, but I'm 50. From the time that from up until 48 or so, I didn't call my mom at all. So
Making up for lost time.
yeah, for sure, for sure. One of the things when I got sober was, she got no immune system, and if she gets sick, she can just die. And I don't really know her too well. And that's something that I wanted to do and also let her know that I'll be fine when she does die, so she don't have to die worrying about me. Because they spent many a night.
I can't imagine.
One night the power went out there by their house. They lived in Machias, and I had bought a car for a half gram of crank, and I bought it from a guy who was running a halfway house somewhere here in Everett, right? And it didn't have no lights, so I took it up to a party, and then when I went to leave, it didn't have no lights, so I wired up some lights. Finally got it to leave, but I had been up for almost 12 days or something, straight staying awake. Well, maybe a couple hour power naps in between. And it was Valentine's Day, and I actually got in a car wreck like 2 years earlier on Valentine's Day, and on the same road. Anyways, I hit a telephone pole and all the power for the whole place went. And my mom was like, "I just knew it was you. I just knew it was you." And so I can't imagine what I put her through.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool to be able to show her some type of success. And um, I'm not by any means successful, but I'm successful in what I'm doing right now. As far as quitting. and being clean and trying to lead by example to other people and like the feed, I show those people that it can be done. This is
Well,
not a
Eddie, I think you're selling yourself a little short. Um, because I could say just in knowing you, um, what a fantastic legacy you're leaving already in your sobriety in this short amount of time. You're doing detox runs for Mike.
yeah.
You're taking people to detox and treatment.
And that's something that
You
pays
are
back.
feeding the community, the people that are still suffering.
Yeah.
You're serving them. You're running this clean and sober house for us
Yeah.
as a manager. I mean, those are huge things. I hope you do give yourself some credit to
I
look at where you
do.
are right now.
I do. If I weigh it out though for the years, it's just really nothing compared to the
Yeah.
years that I
Isn't it
spent.
easier just to beat the shit out of ourselves?
Well, I spent a lot of years poisoning this community.
Right.
You know,
Well, I do
so
have a theory that as screwed up as we were when we were in our active addiction is directly proportionate to how much volunteer work we'll have to do when we
yeah,
get sober.
that's kind of
So
where
you
I'm
just got
at.
started.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and that's why I'm saying I don't. I don't take a lot of credit for it because the credit really goes to the people who are. I just volunteer.
Well, like you
With my
said, leading
time.
by example, that's the most important
And
thing.
that is. Um,
The problem with this disease right now is that, these one more highs, these, you know, um, clients that are getting out of detox and then they accidentally relapse. They don't have anything close to the tolerance they had before, and just the smallest little bit. People
and
are actually just dying.
and they just die right away. And they go back out there. And my little brother died that way. Actually, the brother of the guy who jumped in front of the train, he died that way. He got out of prison. He was doing really, really well. Um, this one was heroin, but he went and made it. So his cousin came over, gave him some dope, and he made up a shot just like he would before he went to prison.
Right.
And it just is, and they killed him.
Oh yeah.
I remember giving him mouth to mouth while he was dying. It just like pretty hectic. That was a bad day. I gotta say, but bad days. I've had a lot of bad days when it comes to seeing things. Especially here in Everett. Everett has got a lot of. There's a lot of death. I lost 14 friends in 1 year, along with my dad, my best friend, my dog.
Your dog didn't overdose though, did
No, no, my
Okay.
dog died. My dog was 18 years. She was an 18-year-old little dachshund. Rosie was her name. She was my best friend. I gotta say, yeah, yeah, she didn't like me doing dope either. She was all me, but she's gone. God bless her soul. Um, yeah, you see a lot of bad things in this town, and you really don't see the good things. A lot of those people, you see the crime, you see you see the dirtiness. Let's go there. The dirtiness of the homeless people. Like that's what you see. You don't see the fact that they. When I was a kid, downtown Colby had two garbage cans in every block. They didn't. You didn't worry about throwing yourself away. You just walk by it, threw it away, right? Well, now there's no garbage cans.
That's interesting.
Um, when COVID hit, the homeless got kind of separated, segregated, and pushed around. And at one point in time, they got pushed down here on Smith Street under the bridge. Well, the social workers and the police told us just to throw our trash in the street, and they would send a cleanup crew. So everybody driving by, even news people came by driving by, and what do you see? You see just a line of trash and homeless, and just we were told to do that, by the city. We had no idea. So I had a homeless camp up on up there by 52nd area, and it's where Les Schwab is. It goes up a hill, okay? And it started out, I would stay in the little spot where the tree is because it's unincorporated Everett. There was nothing they could do about it, right? And then once I started staying there, all of a sudden I had 100 people there, and they would come twice a week to clean up the streets, and Me, I'm thinking, man, this they got a tractor, they got people, they got a social worker. They're spending $10,000, $20,000 a week to come and clean up after this camp. No wonder the taxpayers are bad. So I started divvying out little bits of my money, and
To whom?
to the homeless to tell them to clean up, and so that when they got there, they had to send their cleanup crews home. There was nothing to clean up, you know. And I thought that that might be noticed, and I spent quite a bit of money, you
See,
know.
I was about to ask you what you think the solution should be, but I don't think that that would be it.
No, no, that's not the solution, definitely.
Don't give
I was
them
just
the
trying to make it notice that when they came, there was nothing to clean up.
very
That we
interesting.
we were capable of cleaning up after our own selves,
I see.
and that wasn't noticed. As a matter of fact, a lady drove by me filming me and filming everybody else as she's talking to her little soccer mom group or whatever. And we're getting ready to post it on Facebook. And at one point in time, I said, either you're a part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And she's like, well, what's the solution? We give you programs and nobody wants to take them. And it's not that nobody wants to take them; it's that you're instantly asking them to give away their freedom. You know
How so?
how so? They have, in order to get into a program, they have to do detox. It was
Hmm.
it was a mandatory. It was mandatory in order to get help. And that's and me. I think a little bit towards back. Well, let's go back a little further towards like the Fair Housing Act. Everybody deserves affordable housing. The houses here, I get SSI. I can't even afford to live in a house by myself. I can't even afford it on the way. It's not. There's nothing affordable for me. It's you can take them off the streets and instantly put them locked. I don't know if you've ever been locked up, but they tell you what to do in detox. And you're there. You can leave at any point in time. Don't get me wrong, but that's a stipulation to getting help.
And you don't agree with that?
Mm, I think that there could be. I think that I don't think it should be a stipulation though. I think
But
that everybody,
how?
even a drug addict, deserves to live under. Even a drug addict deserves to live under a roof. Um, I think that I don't think. See, I'm kind of torn because now that I'm sober, I see it in different light.
Okay,
Um,
so here's my point on it. How is somebody going to work on the issues that cause them to make the decisions, which are probably trauma,
oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
To get them into a place of that level of addiction and or homelessness, right? If I want them to dig in and actually heal somebody, I can't start while they're
While they're
completely
high, while they're lit. Yeah, I understand that.
out of their minds.
I understand
So
that.
it has to come down to getting the client stable
Yeah,
and safe. And if the taxpayers are going to pay
and
to have somebody housed in any way, shape, or form, why should they get to do
drugs while
copious
they're
amounts
out.
of
Yeah,
opiates or fentanyl?
yeah. I mean, well,
I
they
think, I understand
regardless,
what you're
they
saying.
the
It feels like a
taxpayers
punishment,
pay either way. The taxpayers pay either way. I mean, there's people who are
but this is
in houses
exactly
now
the debate that's
already.
going on in Seattle and everywhere right now.
Yeah.
Is that we're, I believe, over coddling the problem. We have so much sympathy
Well,
and
they're
empathy.
doing
We have no common
housing
sense.
first, no resistance,
Right.
no,
Housing
you
first,
know,
low
and,
barrier housing,
and
which
I'll tell you, as a homeless person, I really believe that, you're asking me to give up my freedom. Hell no, I'm not doing that. You know, I'm not going to give up my
but right now
freedom.
the low barrier housing and the housing first, they do not require the clients to go to detox. They'll put them right
Seeing
in.
I don't agree with that now that I'm sober.
Exactly.
Now that I'm sober,
But do you think that this is why they are
I think that's where the
they're what
problem
is it?
is.
Resistant, they're service resistant. They're doing the sweeps down in the homeless encampments.
You know,
And they're saying that they're just shuffling around because the clients or these individuals are service resistant. They don't want the help. Is this because they feel that
well,
their rights would be taken away, their freedoms would be taken away? They would have to get sober. They don't want to get sober.
some will live that lifestyle because that's the way they choose to live. And I was one of those people. I lived
So do you
homeless
think they should have like a
for
little area that they can pitch their tent? They just want to live in a tent?
I had a car. I never really lived in a tent, but I've had 6 cars taken by
Well,
Stone
what
County.
should the world do with people that just don't want it? They just don't want services. As someone that's been there, you would
There's
have.
nothing you can do. I mean, really, in my opinion, there's nothing that you can do. It comes to that down to that person making the choice. It came down to me making a choice. There's nothing that anybody could have done for me to change it. You couldn't change who I was. I had to change it. And that's a fact. I think that when I did try to change, um, I was in the system for probably 3 months, and then the system kind of stopped helping me and put me right back out to where I was.
Why?
So there was a rerun of actions. I don't know. I don't know. I think that we should follow the people we do help a little longer. I think
Mm.
that that would really help. To get real numbers on who was successful in it. Because in 3 months, I'm 2 years into it with 10 months clean, okay, and I don't even know who I am at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't even know unwind. I haven't unwound all the crap that I've been through to know who I am. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, a year ago, if you would ask me who I am, a fighter would have been the first word out of my. I don't like to fight.
Mm-hmm.
I like to
Mm-hmm.
help people.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, you
But you wouldn't even be able to broach that subject without some
without
clarity.
some clarity. Yeah. Oh,
Right.
and now that I'm sober, I definitely don't. I mean, I hear people are doing housing first, and I think that that's just a very dumb idea. I mean, I think that it starts with like the feeds, like the place. That's where it starts. Okay, it starts at the feeds. It starts at the outreach when I go out and I talk to other people. When I show them that it can be done. When I
Mm-hmm.
lead by example, that's where it starts. It starts with one drug addict helping another drug addict. But at
Meeting
the
them
at
where
the
they're at.
at the feeds, you're gaining trust.
Mm-hmm.
These people are leery of even eating food because, like, during COVID, people passed around food that had food poisoning. And it just got a lot of people sick. And
Why? How? Where? What?
down underneath the mission, underneath the down by
People
the
would come
mission,
and try to
they
poison the
give
homeless people?
yeah, they give you food and they have food poisoning.
Who was that? Who were they?
I don't know the exact group that they were, but I know a lot of people got sick from boxed food that was being given to them. And it really upset me. I mean, me, I've always been like kind of a bully of bullies. What I'm saying? I'll bully the big guy. But I'll be damned if I see a pick on the little guy. And it's I don't know. I can't point no fingers because it's like that. It's like that gang stalking thing I'm talking about. If you try to go into a police station and tattle or try to make a report on being gang stalked, you'll be laughed out of there because it's done in such a fashion that there is no way to point a finger at any one person. It's done by so many people. It's such a broad spectrum.
But it's a real thing.
Over in the East Coast, gang stalking is actually illegal. To be involved in a form of gang stalking is illegal. And what they did is they brought it over here and they call it a community watch or community surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
And they implement the same tactics as they did over in the East Coast, which is
Mm-hmm.
illegal now. You tell me. I mean,
So these are.
if I committed murder on the East Coast, which is what I'm saying, and then I come over here and change the name of it and do it, it's still considered murder. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And the problem is you got these people who are housed, wealthy, healthy, you know, most of them have cars, they're educated, and they're doing that to people who are unhoused, unwealthy, unhealthy, uneducated. Half of them are on disability one way or another, meaning that they have uh, you know, a disability, whether it's physical or mental. So what you got is you got normal people picking on the retarded kids. And that's the way I looked at it. And it really made me mad, like furious mad. Like at point in times, drive by me and honk your horn, I'll throw a rock at you. I mean, God forbid they would have gave me a gun out there. So um, it really made me mad because and some people don't even realize when they do it. They're in these. they're in these neighborhood watch chats, and okay, when this person walks by, turn your porch light on, turn your porch light on, turn your porch light on, turn your porch light on. When you walk all the way from 41st, or from, let's just say from 12th up to 41st, in every house that you go by, the light goes on, you start to wonder who's going to come out. You start to wonder, and it's a way of, and I understand, my parents own a house. I don't want what I did out there by my parents' house. They were smart, they moved out of the country, but I wouldn't want my parents to be subjected to what everybody's subjected to. And I was part of, that people in Everett, like
Hmm.
somebody would harass me and I would get 10 or 12 homeless people to come and just plop right on their sidewalk, and we camp on their sidewalk and there's nothing they could do. Or I'd park my car in front of their house and I had to move in 72 hours. And that was my way of fighting back, you know, because we went to the police and told the police, and they just, you need to get some sleep. You're too high. You're whatever,
Yeah,
and
which is also true.
sometimes,
I mean, the problem is,
when you push a person, okay, into a psychosis, it's not just a drug-induced psychosis. People torment people until that psychosis comes up. You know what I'm saying? Um, a drug-induced psychosis is a whole other thing,
hmm,
But when you have groups of people out there, constantly pulling up in a car, rolling the window down with this far, and taking off real fast,
hmm.
and doing this
Excuse me.
all day to you, it you can literally do this and implement these tactics to direct a person where you want them to go. You know,
Well, society as a whole, we're exhausted by this problem.
well,
We don't see a solution. We see the same things over and over and over again. The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And so, I think we've got to come up with more of a plan. And I will tell you that people sitting from your experience vantage point are the first people I would ask of how to solve this problem. The fact that you now have this 2 years in recovery, I'll say, regardless of your specific clean time, you've been in this recovery world. You now have a different opinion about it because you know how important the clarity is. This is big picture stuff. This is when a client or an
well,
individual is ready for change.
I've seen them give them housing and then just let them die in there. This Claire's place and this other Andy's place, and it seems to me and they even have nurses down there so that when they die, they can clean it up. It seems to be like a last stop shop, and that kind of upset me too. I gotta say
Yeah, because
that
that doesn't seem very compassionate
no,
either.
that's not compassionate at all. And you're setting them up for failure.
Right.
And
And addicts don't do well in isolation.
so housing first is not. I mean, that's not an option.
It's
It's
not
not.
the
It's
the
not an
safest
option.
approach. It is out of sight, out of mind, though. At least they're not,
Out of
down
sight,
under the
out of mind
bridge,
doesn't. It's kind of like you're being exhausted and just giving up on a problem.
which is
It doesn't.
where we're at.
It doesn't fix nothing. If you just give up on a problem, nothing gets fixed. You
Right.
know what
And
I'm
so
saying?
let's
It's just
say,
it's actually going to grow.
the
It's going to
city
escalate and get
doesn't want the
worse.
homeless to come over and gather all in the same area. And so the nonprofits that would put or groups that would put a little table out and serve pizza or hand out hand warmers, you have to get a permit to do that now, and it's a $500 fine if you don't get a permit. So they're deterring groups like us from going out and reaching the
I believe that it's actually a jailable offense now
yeah.
to serve food without the
A
proper
permit.
licensing.
Yeah, and so that's
So
just a deterrent because they don't want them gathering, I guess. It feels very counterintuitive. Or like when I drive here past the mission, I go underneath the overpass and there's a chain link fence on the sidewalk because this
blocking
where they used to camp right next to the mission. If
that's
I were God and I was looking down and I saw a bunch of people gathered next to the mission out of the rain,
mhm,
what would I think those people were after?
yeah, housing.
Shelter?
Shelter.
Yeah,
Yeah, trying to stay warm. I live there. I live there. When they put those fences up, I live there.
under the
And
bridge.
that's a way. So if you get a gathering of let's say we're in Seattle and you have a gathering of gang members who are on a corner at all times, since Cleopatra or whatever, we've studied ways to move the movement of the mass without any interaction. You know what I'm saying? So they would put a divider, a concrete divider on that corner halfway around it to get them to go one way or the other. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? To move that mass. And that's all that fence is to move the mass,
So I guess my problem is any resources sent to deter should be given to the problem itself.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
now we've identified it exists, we can't
No,
ignore it
I mean, do
anymore.
you know how many meals that fence could have bought?
Right.
Or how many pairs of socks, or how many hoodies or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest tents because then you're just escalating the problem. You know
You
what I
know,
mean? I
I
used to
think
go out and give tents away,
I
and
think this you would be very interesting. I think we should do another episode, and I'll have you debate somebody in leadership
that was fine.
because I don't know if they've actually spoken to somebody that's lived under the bridge.
No. Well, I have.
You know,
I
they're making decisions
I've lived under the
based on
bridge.
what
I've
would be
dumpster
compassionate
dived.
and
I've
logical.
lived in cars. I've lived under blue tarps with only hand sanitizer to keep me warm in the snow. And I've always taken people in. I'm a fairly smart individual, but if I see somebody, at one point in time, I got rolls of garbage bags
Hmm.
in from dumpster diving,
Hmm.
and I kept those rolls and made ponchos in a rainy season
Hmm.
for all the homeless. All the homeless walking around with clear ponchos,
Hmm.
and I've always been about helping the homeless. I've always because I've been homeless. I've been there, and I think when you get a piece of chicken and you walk outside and you see somebody hungry, I don't need all 8 pieces.
Hmm.
And if I give one away today, maybe that person will get up and be able to function the rest of the day. A simple hello can save a life. Just showing somebody that they're not alone. You know, and that's
Absolutely.
why I say it starts at the things like the feed that Mike puts on
Hmm.
that I volunteer for.
Hmm.
Because you gain trust, and with trust, you open up an opportunity for them to accept help.
Hmm.
With being distrusting and being homeless, it was feeling. It's like being schizophrenic.
Hmm.
And which I am, by the way. But being schizophrenic, I start the day out fighting a world that's against me. Whether I talk to anybody or not, in my mind, the world is against me. And to the homeless, the world is against them. You
Hmm.
got certain people, and unfortunately, people are people, and they take advantage. There's a lot of taking advantage of things. Which is, for a long time, Everett housed all the drug dealers.
Hmm.
But the actual homeless people that were down and out and really needed help were the clients of the drug dealers.
Hmm.
And here over at Holiday Inn, they're just or Days
Wait,
Inn.
wait, wait. Are you saying that our resources for recovery housing,
Yeah,
we were housing the drug dealers?
for the drug dealers in Days Inn there up by the Ivor Mall.
Is that a coincidence?
Mm,
How did that happen?
I don't.
Were the drug
You
dealers
know,
just more savvy?
they probably were a little more savvy.
Yeah.
But
Oh my word.
the people that actually went out and functioned and got
I
the
wonder if that's
housing.
still happening right now.
I'm sure it is in certain areas. I'm sure it is.
Wow.
I don't know because I'm totally out of the scene. All I
Yeah.
know is the aspect of serving a
Yeah.
meal to somebody
Yeah.
at this point
Well,
in
no,
time.
but you make an excellent point, and that's always been what
And
I preach too. Is if somebody needs help, help them. If somebody's hungry, feed them. We would be a far better
the
society
way to
if
fix it though really is to
we looked at somebody and said, "Are you okay?"
yeah, for sure, for sure. Can tell you how many times just saying hello to somebody has literally stopped
I
people.
had a homeless person kiss me once in downtown. It was this little lady. She was carrying a cup, asking for spare change. She was drooling into her cup.
Mm.
And I looked at her and I looked right in her eyes and I said, "How are you?" And smiled.
Oh,
And she went and ran up and kissed me on the cheek. And her drool was
drooling all.
dripping down. And
I would
my
say
friends
don't
were all
kiss me.
looking. Well, she came right at
Yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah.
and sweetest little thing. But My friends were laughing. I'm like, of course you get kissed by the homeless woman.
I'm cool with it. Thank you. I've gotten many hugs and many, many
Yeah.
thank you.
But it was all because I just made eye contact with her.
And the difference between feeling alone and having the world against you and hearing just a hello is the world of difference. It really is. I mean, just to know you're not alone in the world can save a life. That can save your life. And there's all kinds of lives out there that need a hello versus, I was walking into so I was walking into an Albertsons and this guy bent down to his daughter and he started cussing. Like he said, that right there is a real asshole, and he's pointing at me. And I'm like, teaching your kid that right now?
Was this when you were still out?
Here's the deal, though. I had an ex girlfriend who wrote some stuff on a public trail years ago. You could probably even Google it. And she wrote, Eddie Atwood killed me with his lies. So,
do you think he knew who you were?
well, it went viral.
Oh.
This thing went viral online, and people were like, "Oh, I know Eddie Atwood." They looked up my criminal record, and yeah, I got 26 assaults, and I've been selling dope since I was 13 years old. I got a criminal record.
Okay.
But I don't know if he knew that or if he was just picking me out because I had a backpack on. Here's one example.
This is while you were homeless, though.
This is while I was homeless, yeah.
Okay.
And I was just like, I can't believe you're teaching your kids this.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe that. I mean, just generational hate. I was like, how could you do? I teach my kids to love people. You know what I mean? Like, it just amazed me that people would actually, hey, would say things about a person he doesn't even know.
Well, I'll be honest. Before I got into this line of work, I didn't know who was outside the store holding a sign until I actually spoke to them, finding out that they were circumstantially homeless. They were actually college educated, brilliant, kind, all these things, and this snowball domino effect. They lost their job. They blah 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 blah. Here they are holding a sign. If I hadn't spoken to them, I would have never known. I would just thought that they were a dirty.
I've been homeless with people who were.
They made those decisions, and
I've been homeless with people who,
I think
had 2,202 dollars, 2 cents, criminals, murderers, drug dealers. I've been homeless with every kind of walk of person, and I've sat and I could fit in a room with almost anybody.
Well, and then the ones that take advantage of the system, they are entitled, they don't want to blah blah blah. Those individuals are very far and in between, that they give the entire demographic a really bad rap.
It's kind of like the city telling us to throw our trash on the ground. What you see, the people inside houses are far worse than the people you see outside the houses. The problem is you don't see the people inside houses. And when they do mess up, they have the money to cover it up. They have the money to get an attorney and pay for it. What you see is what you see when it comes to homeless, right? Because it's right there in your face.
Well, and it probably represents the decay of our society.
And it does. It's a failure of of parents, of the political system. It's a failure of our laws. And I don't see it really getting any better um, until somebody starts to say hello or give that piece of chicken away.
Yeah. Or keep these guys accountable.
Yeah. It's really sad. It's really, really sad. I was on Motel 6 up there on 100th, right? And I was crossing the street. Your daughter was to come in. Okay. And I was on Motel 6 at one point in time. And I was crossing the street.
To the bathroom again. Okay, honey, we're almost done with our interview.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Say hi. Okay.
Okay, I'll be right out, honey. But I need you. Okay.
Okay,
Well,
she's
I
cute.
suppose on that note.
Let me just finish this. Can I finish one story real quick, hon?
Why is your arm going?
Because my arm's over here. See? Hi, hi, hi.
My arm's broken. This is on the internet right now.
Okay.
My arm's broken.
Kids are so cute. I actually have 10 kids total. I met a girl who had 5 kids, and I spent 26 years with her. That was my on and off relationship. She's a great lady. She's one of my best friends. And, yeah, kids are great. So, well, go ahead and go. Okay. Well, then we'll have to come back because kids come first.
Yes, and we will do another interview. This was really interesting. I could have debated this all day.
I had a, I was walking across the street, just real quick. I was walking across the street on 100th, and I had a backpack on. Well, I got over the yellow line. I was jaywalking, mind you. I got over the yellow line and halfway through the other section as a car came over the yellow line and tried to hit me.
Oh my gosh.
I threw my hands up in the air, and at the stoplight was a police officer, parking police in the truck, right? Well, the guy put it in reverse and he came back at me fast,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
To me, I took that as assault of my life, you know. I mean, if they give me assault charges with hairspray, you know, and a lighter, I actually took out mace and I sprayed the guy all in his car, and I made sure I got it in his car so that he could remember what he did. And then he pulls up to the light and he looks at the cop, and the cop's like, you know, so it's not like all the cops are against homeless. You know, the cops seen what he does. Now, mind you, I think if that was me driving, I would have been pulled over and got, you know, after they read my name, I would have got another assault with a deadly weapon charge, you know. But that's what that was. It's essentially, it's the guy assaulted me with a deadly weapon. And the cop saw me use nonviolent force and was on my side. You know, he was totally for me, you know, like, basically told the guy too bad. You know, threw his hands up like sorry, and took a left hand turn and walked away from the situation. You know, and so I don't want to say anything bad about Everett Police. You know, because there's a lot of good cops out there. There are some cops that are very biased against homeless, biased against drug users, you know, and that's unfortunate because in that position you have to have an unbiased. You really have to be an unbiased person.
Well,
You know, you can't hold prejudice.
maybe that's who I'll have you debate. Someone from the sheriff's department.
That's not fair.
We'll see how
We
that
probably
one
know
goes.
each other. By the way, my name is Eddie Atwood, and Mike Atwood was our sheriff. Our yeah. So all the cops are like, Atwood, any relation? I'm like, no, God, no. I do know Mike. Mike's a great guy. He retired, all that, you know. But yeah, we're not related.
I think that'd be really interesting though. Anyways, well, thank you, Eddie. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll do this again. And please help out our cause by going to ctcrecovery.org and make a donation to support Nick's Place and our emergency transportation program, getting people to detox and treatment, and our community dinners where we feed the still unhoused. And we appreciate your support.
A solution would be to follow the process a little longer, to pay attention longer than the 3 months that we're paying attention to get the numbers. The solution would be to follow the people a little longer to see what the real actual numbers are. Instead of getting 3 months and turning those people back into the system and counting them as another number, follow the success a little farther. And that's all I can say.
I like it.